Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are here to talk about how can you become a data engineer in specifically in 2024. It's been pretty hard. It's been pretty difficult because of the tightness of the market, because of the competitiveness of the market. But here we have with us Mr. Sarthak Sarabhai, who will be aligning all of his experience, all of his guidance in order to provide you the beneficial insights upon how can you be building up your career into the field of data engineering in 2024. Hello Sarthak, how are you doing?
Hi Rahul, I'm doing fine. Thank you so much. How about you?
I'm doing absolutely amazing. Thank you for asking. Okay, Sarthak, could you please do the honors of introducing yourself at Best?
Sure. I'll keep it quick. Uh, okay, so I was born in Delhi, brought up in Bombay. For pursuing my undergrad, I went off to Jaipur. I studied mechanical engineering in the Manipal University, Jaipur campus. And I finished off college back in 2020, and that's when I started working. Honestly, mechanical was something I felt, I think, pretty much in my third year, this is not my thing. So I really wanted to, get out, do something different. So yeah, I started off into business analytics. Did like a 6 month internship at a LinkedIn top startup back then, and then accidentally, I would say, I landed up into data engineering thing since like mid of 2020, and yeah, so far I've been there in this field. In the past, I have worked at a consulting firm. I've also worked as a consultant with teams from Microsoft and Databricks. Then in 2022, I went on to join American Express as a data engineer. My tenure there lasted for like close to 2.5 years, and right now I'm continuing my data engineering journey at McAfee. So that's about me. And outside of tech or outside of data engineering, I'm really passionate about travel. uh, yeah, I do consider myself to be an outdoor person, so yeah, I do keep pursuing those hobbies and those interests from time to time. So yeah, that's a little about me.
That's great. That's great. So let's cut to the chase and start with the questions. Uh, you have mentioned that you have done mechanical engineering. So how about
Yeah.
transitioning from mechanical engineering to the data science domain? What was your journey like, and what was the uh, uh let's say obstacle in your
Yeah.
path?
Mm. Yeah, sure. I mean, mechanical engineering to data engineering, I think that's a pretty big leap now that I think about it. So to be honest, see, when I went into college 2016, back then I didn't really have any clue of, what I wanted to pursue. People around me were like, okay, mechanical engineering is evergreen, and if you're not sure what you want to do, just take that up. Even though I did like study Java, C, C++ during my school days. But I was not sure of taking computer science or IT, and I was like, okay, let me just give a shot at something new. So mechanical engineering did get started. 2 years went fine. I mean, yeah, my academics and everything was also decent. But I think, yeah, pretty much in my third year, I started realizing this is not my thing. Due to several factors, like I started looking at people, like my friends who were in computer science, who were doing things so rapidly, so quickly, and the kind of opportunities that lay ahead of them. Really, made me surprised as compared to what I could foresee, like my future. And plus, it was not like, okay, mechanical engineering was was like a big passion for me. I was like, okay, this is something I'm just supposed to be studying. But again, I also wanted to take up something which would in the longer run give me a little more location independence, might give me more flexibility in terms of working. So I saw, somewhere working in the let's say computer science or the IT field, not particularly analytics, but I thought, okay, so I could do something there. I started exploring. I think one good thing about college was I spent a lot of time outside of classroom. So I was like, for example, I was volunteering for NGO. I was, working in a student exchange organization. I was even like, working for like a couple of startups in college. So I was getting exposure to different things. So I think all of this added on top of each other. And I think in my third year, pretty much when I was finishing, I came across like a person's profile on Courage. Like she was, working as a business analyst at PayPal, and which really interested me. So I started looking up on analytics, what it is, and interestingly, I had actually taken up a few, I would not say few, but yeah, a couple of statistics courses during my college days, and I did like fairly well at them as compared to my mechanical engineering subjects. So I mean, statistics was something that I always had an inclination to right from school, but yeah, I never really seriously thought much about it. So I think when I looked into analytics, I was like, okay, statistics is something that's definitely going to be there. And I thought, okay, what if I try to aim for becoming a business analyst, because I could understand business, I could also understand tech. Obviously it's going to be a much more steep learning curve, but in the beginning I can start slow. So, and yes, I can obviously get myself equipped with different technology, like for example, I can learn Excel, I can learn a little bit of SQL, I can learn a little bit of data visualization. So those were my ideas back in like late 2019 when all of this happened. So now fast forward to my final semester, my eighth semester. I was again, like just like anybody in college, final year. I mean, yeah, I also sat for placements, but in the initial run itself, I realized, I mean, either I get into a mass recruiting company, and they might end up putting me in a technology which I may or may not like. So for me, that was a gamble I didn't want to take up. I was sure that okay, business analytics is something I want to give a shot at. So I tried for a lot of internships, applied for, I don't know, maybe 100 more companies, got offers from barely two of them by the end of 2019, and one of them was surprisingly a LinkedIn top startup back then. And I was like, okay, let me try. So yeah, I started that internship 6 months into it, and this was the time when COVID hit, 2020, right? So March was the time I remember. Yeah, like most of us, I came back home. I started working from home. So I mean, yeah, the internship overall was not as per what I expected. I was hoping that okay, I might be a bridge between business and tech. I might get to do like maybe do some technical stuff as well, and obviously understand business. But it was 80%, I would say, more like business oriented. I was working with management consultants, I was working with the operations team, and yeah, a little bit of data crunching with Excel, I would say. So and plus the work environment wasn't that great. So I was like, okay, I definitely don't see a future for myself here. I need to get out. So anyways, the internship ended. They were like, okay, they were giving me a full-time offer. I was like, I maybe don't want to continue, I'll look for something else. So those 6 months, yes, while I was at home for, I think, post March, I was saving time. So I thought, okay, let me focus on my technical skills more. So I took up a data camp subscription. I still remember they had a big discount running during that time. So I was like, okay, I'll practice SQL, I'll practice Python, learn and practice Python and SQL through data camp. And I think, yeah, I started doing that since like March, and then in July the internship ended. And then obviously I was not having any offer, because I had an Accenture offer which I had like rejected a long time back, so I didn't really have anything on my plate. But yes, that was a time when I had a lot of support from family, and my family was like, okay, you want to try something, go give it a shot, let's see what happens. So I think I remember I spent like about a month and a half applying for data analyst roles. Now, because I experienced some bit of business analytics, I gained the confidence that I can work a little more in the technical role. And plus I was gearing up on Python and SQL, I think, so that also added up to that confidence. So I think I remember 1.5 months I gave like 3 or 4 interviews, and then one of them worked out, which was a consulting firm, data and AI consulting firm. Interestingly, so they had an opening for a Python developer, and I was like, okay, I'm anyways learning Python. Let's give it a shot, right? What's the worst gonna happen? Anyways, I'll get rejected, right? So I gave it a shot. They interviewed, like they had 2 technical rounds. They asked me SQL and Python questions, which yeah, I was able to like answer, and somehow the interviews went well. And then I was like, okay, I was given a role. But they were like, okay, we'll give you a trainee role, and if you do well in the first couple of months, we'll convert you into a full-time role. I was like, sure. Until here, everything was fine. I was like, okay, this is as per plan, right? But the big surprise came on my first day, wherein they were like, okay, we will be putting you in the big data team. So now here I am on the first day in the big data team of this company. I have no clue what data engineering is. I have no clue what cloud computing is. I have no clue what Microsoft Azure is. And they're like, bro, you have to, you are in this team, so now you'll be working with this technology stack. I was like, great. I still remember, this is a funny incident. So I still remember my mentor on my first day, he had set up a call. Okay. So he gave me like a 20 minutes introduction about Apache Spark, and whatever he said, I could not understand a single thing. And by the end of that meeting, he just asked me, "Okay, do you have any questions?" I was like, "No, I don't have any questions." And it was not his fault. He's somebody working in the field for quite a few years, and he has a good amount of knowledge. It's just that my fundamentals were not up to that level to grasp even the basics of a certain technology. So I mean, yeah, at that point, I realized. I mean, it was a big realization that okay, I'm into something which is way outside my comfort zone. Now obviously I have two options: either I stay in, try and learn, and try to get better at it, or just simply leave. So I was like, anyways, I don't have anything to lose, right? And staying outside of my comfort zone is something that I have been practicing for many years, mainly in the form of travel, but I think that has kind of gotten ingrained into my nature. So I was like, okay, let's give it a shot. Let's see what will happen. So I mean, yeah, first 2 to 3 months that was a pretty steep learning curve, but yeah, slowly and steadily I started understanding things. I Obviously there was no spoon feeding of any sort. It was like, okay, people will just direct you to documentation, people will direct you to some helpful resource links, and you need to either watch the videos, learn from the tutorials, read the documentation, try things on your own, using the platform access that you've been given. So I think I just started doing that. And yeah, I think after completing my 2 months, I was put into a project. Like I was supposed to be assisting a senior person in that project. And yeah, I mean, via that project, I got an understanding, okay, how things are actually done uh, in the real world. And I think, yeah, that was the beginning, right? And since then I haven't really looked back. So whatever kind of opportunities have come up, I have obviously tried to give my best. Needless to say, I've been rejected, or things have not worked out in many scenarios, but yes, thankfully a lot of things have also worked out. And yeah, that's how I got into data engineering. And I think every role that I've taken up, like even after moving out of the company, when I joined American Express, that was again a big challenge, because I was moving from Microsoft Azure and Databricks. Like for close to 1.5 years I worked on Azure and Databricks, and now I was completely on prem, right? So that's a drastic change, even though the technologies in terms of the open source stack remains the same. But yes, the way we were doing things here in American Express was quite different. So again, a steep learning curve, but again, I really enjoyed that process, I would say. And then again, the same thing here, like in my current role at McAfee as well. I mean, there are a lot of new things as well. There are some things that I've already worked on before. So I think I'm enjoying that process so far, and that's how my journey has been.
Pretty interesting journey. Actually, I'm into your journey, that how much challenging it could be, and how much you have been doing through the internship, through the changing of your jobs, through the changing of your degrees and all. Okay, through degrees, I recall one thing, that you haven't done any kind of full-fledged course from any organization or any edtech platform. So how could be how could a person uh, do what could a person do to get ahead in their data science career by not opting out for any of the edtech platforms? What are the uh, let's say courses, what are the certifications, what are the platforms that have helped you in your journey?
Okay.
Could you please put some light?
Sure. Sure, I'd love to. I think, even before I talk about the resources, the learning resources, I think one thing that's very important in the data space, I mean, not just data space, but in tech in general, is that obviously there is a lot of continuous learning. So, you have to have that mindset that, okay, today if you're working with a certain piece of technology, it's not necessary you'll be doing that for the next 20 years of your life, right? Eventually you'll move across projects, you'll move across organizations. So things will change. So you have to like adapt. And one thing that I've also noticed, obviously this is not something I knew when I started, was there are a lot of fundamentals that just remain the same. Like for example, if you take a data processing framework like Apache Spark, if you understand that, in and out, you can pretty much work with any other data processing engine that even comes out in the future. Maybe it might be a little more optimized than Spark, but a lot of the internals, or the way it behaves, might be the same. So you can actually resonate. So I think, yeah, focusing obviously on fundamentals and yeah, like the inherent nature to adapt and to like evolve. I think that's important. Now coming to resources, so I think my learning journey really began with Coursera, much like any other student, because my university was giving me free Coursera courses. So I was like, okay, let's just begin from here. So I think, yeah, I took a bunch of Coursera courses. I did a lot of them. Uh, this was, I think, when I was still in college, right? Like before even going and getting into the internship. Now, once this was 2019, so Coursera was one. 2020, I can definitely name Data Camp, because Data Camp really helped me learn three specific technologies. That was Python, SQL, and R. Even though I don't really use R now, but yeah, I really enjoyed learning R back then. So yeah, I did like a lot of courses for these three technologies. Now, obviously, when my internship ended, when I actually got into the data and AI consulting company, so now here, obviously, my learning had to revolve around the tech stack that I was using, right? And this is also something that is an advice for everyone. So, for example, if you're working on AWS, if you're working with Azure, right, try to first focus on what you're working on, try to understand well, and obviously try to use the resources surrounding that. Then maybe if you have time, obviously you can jump over to others as well, right? So when I was in this consult, when I was working as a consultant, so since I was doing a lot of Databricks, a lot of Azure, so I used to read a lot of Microsoft documentations. Another thing was that my organization, I mean, much like any other Microsoft partner, so they give you, access to these Azure certifications for free. So you can basically, I think, use a coupon or something, and then you can register for the certification. And obviously, if you clear it, you can, kind of boast about it. Okay, you're like Azure certified, you're like Azure certified data scientist, whatever. So I did a lot of those certifications, but it was not like, okay, I just went for the certification exam as it is. I used to prepare for it. Like Microsoft has some really rich documentations that you can always go through. So for example, for every certification exam, they have listed down, okay, this is the learning path for you. So if you read everything through that piece of documentation, plus maybe take their whatever hands-on exercises they have, you will be really well prepared for the certification exam. So this is how I used to do, prepare for the certifications exams alongside working on my job. Now my intention was twofold. Okay, one was obviously, if I can get through the certification, it just adds on to my profile. Second, whatever pieces of documentation that I'm reading, that's going to be directly helping me on my job, because at the end of the day, it's the same technology, right, that I'm using. So if I'm reading about Azure SQL database, if I'm reading about Azure Synapse Analytics, that's something, if I'm into a project and I'm using the same technology, that knowledge, that theoretical knowledge is going to like totally be useful out there for my project. So that was my intention. So I think, yeah, during those days, I I used to read a lot of Microsoft documentation. Plus, again, I was working on Databricks. So I think Databricks was also something that, I used to take help from their, so they have like these conferences wherein people come and present like some interesting use cases. So I used to watch those videos. I used to read their documentation. They have like some really good blogs. So I used to read all of that. But I think for Databricks, I also experienced an accelerated form of learning. How did that happen? Was so in 2021, I got an opportunity wherein I was working as a co-author for a Databricks book. Now, when this opportunity came through, obviously my experience in Databricks was not like years or something like that, right? I was like, I would say just a few months into Databricks that I've been working on, and like a couple of projects back then. But because of the book, I had to obviously do a lot of research. I had to, obviously do the technical writing. But when you're trying to explain something in a book to someone, right, you have to first understand by yourself, and then you frame it in your own words and try and explain that, or like create examples, or like whatever, give like sample codes for for fellow readers to just try it out when they're reading the book. So I think that 6-7 months led into a lot of good research, and I think that is something that also helped me like improve my understanding on Spark and Databricks, of course. And like, because the book revolved around optimizations using Spark in Databricks, so I think that was a topic that I really touched upon pretty deeply. So I think, yeah, until now, again, the learning was, like I said, my Microsoft documentations, Databricks, obviously watching YouTube videos, reading articles, reading blogs. That was it. And now when I went on to join American Express, again, the learning was supposed to, continue happening. So I still remember, like, when I joined Amex, I took up a few Udemy courses. So because I was actually asked by my team lead to like just be prepared on a few things. Like, for example, I had never learned about airflow, so I took up a course on airflow. I took up a course on Kafka, because I mean Kafka was part of the architecture that we were working on. So the again now the obviously the shift was mostly on how do you use these open source frameworks in their most, I would say, natural form. So obviously I had to take up courses which do not focus on the cloud environments. Rather, you just, if you want to just use Kafka, how do you like install it locally? How do you work with it? What are the nitty gritties? How do the internals work? So I took those kind of courses. So I think Udemy, I did really find some helpful courses. I also used to watch like some YouTube tutorials. So I think that is what helped me. And throughout my journey at American Express, I think I did take up a few LinkedIn learning courses, although they have been like pretty handful, to be honest. In order to improve my understanding on Airflow, I remember like I once got a free, like a free. They have a certification, I think one of the basic ones. So I got like a free coupon for it. So again, before giving the certification, again, I read through a lot of Airflow documentations. So I think that helped me a lot. So I think in American Express, it was a mix of like multiple sources. So obviously, it included Udemy courses, reading through documentations, YouTube videos, and yeah, and Medium articles. And especially actually last year, I kind of made it a habit. Like I didn't, as a like until last year, I did not have any Medium subscription, because I was like, okay, once in a while, if I have to read an article, why should I go buy a subscription, even though it's not very expensive. But I was actually, I don't remember who that person was, but on LinkedIn, I came across a post wherein a person like really, mentioned the benefits of, having a continuous reading practice, and he did that through Medium. So I was like, let me try, because anyways, I do find free time. So what if I take a Medium subscription, and whenever I get some time, maybe I can just pull up a new article, just read through it, even though it might not be related to what I am doing right now, but it will just add on to some perspective of how there could be a different way of doing the same thing. So yeah, that's something that I've tried to incorporate as a habit. I wouldn't say it's completely there, but yeah, whenever I try and find time, I just open up Medium and maybe read an article or two. That's something I've been trying to do consistently. And yeah, I think other than that, what else? I think, yeah, another thing I'd like to add is there are often trainings provided to you by your organization. So I've tried to benefit from that as well. For example, even the when I was working as a consultant back in those days, there used to be a few Databricks trainings that we used to get offered. So I used to take part in them, and I used to like thoroughly follow them, because they were like people from Databricks who are giving you that training. So and their experience is like really rich. So you can actually not only learn the course material, but in fact, for example, if you're working on a Databricks project and if you're attending that training, you can even ask them, okay, hey, I'm working on this use case, I'm facing this issue. What is your suggestion? And sometimes they even just come out with some really helpful suggestions. So I think, yeah, the reason why I'm sharing this is because learning obviously does not always happen via online resources. You also learn a lot from other people, right? As in, like, it could be your colleagues, it could be, like, for example, the professionals who lead you through these trainings. So I think that's also a good option. And yeah, even I think in American Express, I did like get a chance to attend like a couple of trainings. And I also encourage people to go to conferences, even though I don't think I have been to like a physical one, like so far. I've attended a couple of online conferences, but yeah, maybe in the future, if I get a chance, I'll definitely visit, because that's I mean, obviously you get to network with people, you meet people, but obviously if you once you attend their lectures or their sessions, open hours, you also get to learn about how they are doing things. And often these are like some of the experts, right, in their field. So I think, yeah, that's how I think my learning journey has been, pretty scattered throughout, not really exactly a structured roadmap. But I think this entire practice has personally helped me a lot. Why? Because I'll give you a very simple reason, is that as a data engineer or as a data analyst, even as a data scientist, on an everyday basis, when you're working on a use case, you will land into situations where you're not sure how you should proceed. For example, you're building a pipeline and it's failing for some unknown spark error, right? So it's not necessary that you might have learned that through your training or through the course you have taken. So in that case, what really helps is your curious nature. Like if you're curious enough to go out there on the internet. Obviously now we have chat gpt, so there's a lot of I think help we can get from AI tools, of course, LLM tools. But yes, even before the era of chat gpt and AI, it's going and using Stack Overflow to just to find a resolution to your problem, just understanding what issue you're facing. And I think that also helps you learn a lot. And this is something which a lot of people I think understand when they actually start working, because when you're taking a course, you have this you're boxed inside this phenomena wherein you believe that okay, whatever I'm being taught is that's all, that's all you're going to be encountering when you're into that role. But interestingly, when you actually get into that role, you realize that the possibility of you landing into an issue, or like obviously your pipeline failing or your model not giving you the expected output, is much more, right? It's beyond what you've been already taught in a course. So I think for that, yes, you have to just have to have that mindset. Okay, you come across a problem, try research, try find. And there's a saying, right? You have to stand on the shoulder of giants. So what that basically translates to is, if somebody has already done something, you first go and learn from them, right? If somebody has already built a similar solution and encountered issues and documented that, go and read that, right? You will probably find 90% answers to your problem, and then maybe the 10% is something you can resolve by yourself. And in this way, I think you also come out as an individual contributor, which I feel a lot of teams appreciate, because nobody likes you being one annoying colleague who's always pinging every 10 minutes, hey, I'm getting into this issue, help me resolve this, or how do I go about this? People are busy, right? People don't have time. So you have to have that mindset. Okay, come across a problem, first try by yourself, look through the internet, ask ChatGPT. If nothing works, obviously go and ask your tech lead. Then he will be very happy to give you a resolution. So I think, yeah, that's overall how I can summarize the entire learning journey so far.
Absolutely, and that's been great. Yes, I second on this statement that yeah, if you have the opportunity to learn from the experienced one, then do not lose it. And second of all, if you are somewhat the introvert type, then the uh, written material, the online resource material could be the best possibility that you will be having. Absolutely. Okay. So, completing all of these certification, all of these licenses, is there any kind of difficulty while finding the jobs? Because in your resume, you were having the mechanical engineering degree. Beside that, the certification part. But many of the recruiters, many of the employers do not consider it to be the best one. They want people to have the degree or the post graduation degree. So how much this statement is true, and what are your thoughts upon it?
Yeah, sure. Firstly, I would say, I think when I was, in that phase, again, going back to the 1.5 months period between my internship and landing that role as a consultant, I think, yes, during this time, I realized that, okay, because I was definitely getting rejected from a few opportunities because I was not having any computer science background. So back then, I thought that, okay, maybe as a fresher, it will be a little helpful if you have computer science or IT background from a reputed university or from a reputed college. That will definitely give you a boost, maybe a slight edge compared to the other folks. But at the same time, I've also seen that people value the work that you try to put out. For example, during those 1.5 months, what I was doing was I was pretty active on Kaggle. I tried to create like few. Basically, my agenda was, okay, let me try and build a portfolio, because I had heard n number of people talk about it. And even till today, I always feel that if you have a good portfolio, it will definitely Okay, so another thing that I've seen is that people value your portfolio a lot, and this was something that was on my mind during that 1.5 months period. So I was active on Kaggle. I was trying to, build like a few, what do you say, like really detailed data analysis notebooks. I was also contributing to my GitHub profile, as in like I was, making like these side projects and putting them on GitHub, and I was like posting them on LinkedIn as well. So I think for me what worked out was, yes, because at that point I had a business analytics internship at a co-working spaces startup. So yeah, that was one thing on my profile, and the second thing that I had was, yeah, the portfolio and the skills that I was, offering, like this is what I come with, right? So I think these were the things that helped me, whatever opportunities back then I kind of interviewed for. I think these were the things that helped me, and I feel that that still applies for today. I mean, yes, maybe if you have a like really, what do you say, if you have a degree from a very prestigious college or university in computer science or IT, yes, it will be helpful, but I also feel it is not enough. I mean, if you just think that you have a degree and you'll get a job easily, especially off campus, I still feel that's difficult because there's a lot of competition. So you have to have that thought that, okay, how can you as an individual be a little ahead of the crowd? I mean, it's obviously impossible to, just be number one, because literally there's so much of competition, right? And it's not tangible to even compare, right, you versus all. But I think one healthy way to just judge yourself is, okay, just look, what I used to do was, okay, I used to look at, people's LinkedIn profiles, and I'm like, okay, if this guy is working here at, let's say, with this kind of background or this kind of experience, and for example, if I find someone, who studied mechanical, let's say landed up at Google, into a data analytics role, firstly, obviously, it's very impressive, but my objective will be to understand, what that person did to kind of reach that stage, right? And just learn from that journey, and take inspiration from there. So that is something I used to do, especially during those 1.5 months. So I used to look at people's portfolios, look at people's projects, what they have done, because that was something I could do, that it was in my control, right? I mean, obviously, going out in an interview, I don't have much control over what the interviewer asks me, right? Obviously, I can just be as prepared as I can for the interview. But yes, whatever was in my control, like obviously practicing SQL, practicing Python, building a decent portfolio, trying to showcase my current work experience. I mean, the barely 6 months of internship, in a way that can be relatable to a person who's looking for a data analyst, so that they get the confidence this guy can, like, he has some bit of analytics experience and he can work as a data analyst. So I think, yeah, that was how I went through it.
So continuing further, so yeah, I've talked about different set of challenges that I've faced while searching out for jobs, searching out for opportunities. Once you got the opportunities, then there is no looking back for you. You are now the data engineer at McAfee, as well as you have had an experience with American Express. So could you please tell me about your experiences? What have you learned there? What kind of things have intrigued you, and whatnot?
Yeah, sure. So I think, firstly, McAfee is something that, yes, it's been quite recent that I have joined. So yeah, I mean, there's a little that I can tell you. So the team that I'm working in, it's part of the core machine learning researchers team. So I mean, yeah, we do deal with the data around the different McAfee products, and yeah, we are responsible for ingesting that data into the data lake, and then obviously transforming it and serving it for our machine learning engineers, who mainly act as the consumers. Yeah, technology stack wise, I think it's mostly AWS and Databricks that I'm currently working with. So I mean, yeah, when you're working with Databricks here, so you need to know about Delta Lake, you need to know about Spark structured streaming, and obviously, since most of the code is written in PySpark, so PySpark and Python is something that you should be really well versed with. And needless to say, SQL, because I mean, you use Spark anywhere. We anyways end up writing a lot of Spark SQL anyways, right? So yeah, that's a little about my current role at McAfee. Yeah, maybe with time I'll obviously get to know much more here. Now, my previous role at American Express that lasted for close to 2.5 years. Overall, I would say the experience was pretty good. I mean, no doubt it's one of the best organizations to work for. And so my role was like partly I would say remote, partly it was hybrid. So I mean, I started off working remotely for like a few months, then I went up to Bengaluru. I was working from an office as well for a few months, and then I again switched over to the remote role. And in terms of the technology stack, I mean, there was a lot of exposure on the non big data stack as well. So for example, yes, with the big data stack, I mean, we were using Spark, we were writing PySpark code, I mean, we're writing Python, doing shell scripting, doing whatever data transformations required, pushing the data into the data warehouse, again doing a data warehousing kind of activities. And then so we were also using a few other technologies which I personally hadn't really worked with before. For example, Docker. Like we had built a Python application that was consuming data from REST APIs, pushing that into Kafka. And I mean, yeah, there was also like some DevOps tools included in as well. For example, Excel, like a CI/CD pipeline tool, Jenkins. So I mean, yeah, I wouldn't say I worked as a DevOps engineer also, but I would rather say that I did get a chance to get like an overview around what these technologies are, how do I use them. Because for example, if I'm for example, we are containerizing our service or the application, right? So I need to understand what Docker is, I need to understand where it's getting deployed on Kubernetes, I need to understand what Kubernetes is, and I need to understand these different technologies, right? We are, for example, we're pushing data into Kafka, we are consuming data from Kafka, so I need to understand what Kafka is. And obviously I'm not managing the infrastructure, but I need to understand what it is and how it works, and how can we efficiently use it for our own use cases. So I would say, I mean, yeah, in terms of technology stack, that was I mean, that was in Amex. And I mean, yeah, the team also that I worked with spanned across different time zones. So obviously there were like the mainly the engineering folks based out of India, and then there are also product folks based out of UK, and then there are also like few folks based out of the US. So it's like, okay, spanning 3 different time zones. And yes, you get to interact with people from other teams as well. I mean, in my role it was not as much, but yes, I mean, for people who've been going to office, they've also had this chance to take part in like other company activities, or like just like take part in some hackathon, or some other sessions that are happening, so these kind of things. So yeah, overall it was a good time. I mean, yeah, personally, if I say, yes, it was, I think, a good learning curve for me, because like I said, I came from the Azure and Databricks background to now I was working entirely on prem. So that really boosted up my learning. And it was a fresh engineering team, to be honest, so there were a lot of things that we did from scratch. So I think that also gives you an opportunity to build things from the very basic level, and at the same time, even if some things might not work as expected, you have the bandwidth to pivot or like change the way you're doing certain things. So I think that gave me an opportunity. And I think, yeah, overall I think I really had a lot to learn. And yeah, I basically saw how because before joining Amex, my experience was mostly as a consultant, right? So if you're working as a consultant, working in like short-term projects, for example, 4 months, 6 months, 8 months. So, I mean, yeah, you go out there as a data engineer, you help them build a data platform, and probably you're out. You might be moved on to another project, like your work, mainly your work is over. But here it was like, okay, we not only build things from scratch, we maintain it as well. So like, for example, we used to do like development, testing, deployment, even the maintenance by ourselves of the complete data platform. So it gave me a bird's eye view of how things are being done at an enterprise level, because you're not just pulling data from an API pushing it into the data lake. It's much more than that. For example, there's compliance involved, what kind of data you can bring inside. There's obviously like some of the data can be PII, can be sensitive. How do you handle that? When you're working with when you're like registering new data assets into your data platform, you have to like abide by certain processes, and it cannot be just done as per your convenience, right? You have to follow those processes and steps and get things done in a certain way. When you're deploying changes, you need to raise certain requests, and only then those changes can go into production. So basically getting to know a lot of these processes and stuff was something pretty new for me, because in the projects that I worked as a consultant, they were again short term, and people laid more emphasis on delivery rather than actually following the best practices. But here I saw like a lot of these best practices came in. Even for example, the entire agile process. I was new to this agile process also. Like I was not used to like regular stand-ups and defining sprints on a 2-week basis, and then sprint planning sessions or demo sessions, and these were not the kind of things I was used to have. During my consulting days, it was like, okay, the client gives you a requirement, you need to do it ASAP. If the client is satisfied with it, he might just give you another requirement. That's it. Like that's the way I was working before joining Amex. But here again in Amex, things I saw how things are being done at a very large scale, at an enterprise level. So I think that helped, and I think that learning has benefited me in my current role as well, because again, McAfee is a big organization, and they've been out in the industry for a very long period of time, and they are market leaders in what they are doing. So obviously getting to know things here as well is pretty unique. At the same time, a lot of that experience from Amex is helping me here as well. So yeah, I think overall it's been good so far.
That's great. So the next question would be, so there is the very there are many of the people that has been confused in between data science, then data analytics, then data engineering. In the perspective of the career opportunities, growth opportunities, as well as in the perspective of the work. So could you please put some light upon it, so that it will be easier for the candidates or the people who are searching out for the best career for themselves in the field of data science?
Sure. That's a very good question, because I also come across a lot of people who are, confused. Like, they have an idea that they want to go into the data domain, but then they see these variety of technologies, this big ecosystem. They get intimidated, and obviously they get confused. Now, I think my way of looking at it is you first need to understand these roles, right? Only then you will be able to decide what is it that you want to pursue. So at a high level, let's talk about all these three. Starting off with data engineering, because again that's my core area of work. So as a data engineer, I feel it has a lot of overlap with software engineering, as well as there's overlap with like some sort of data analytics, like the kind of work you might do as a data analytics, that also comes into play here. But at the end of the day, what do you do as a data engineer is simple. You have some data source. That could be anything. That could be a NoSQL database, that could be a REST API, that could be a transactional RDBMS, whatever. Now all you're doing is you're pulling data from somewhere, you're modifying it, and you're loading it to somewhere. At the end of the day, that at a very high level, if somebody asks me, that's what I can say about a data engineer. And because the work that you do helps other people, so your product is not the end result. Rather, the end result is something that people do with the data that you provide. Okay, so if you like, if you're comfortable with more, let's say, code-based tools, if you are somewhat comfortable with software engineering, if you also want to get a flavor of data analytics in your work, I think data engineering can be a good choice. Now moving on to data science, where does data science really come into the picture? I feel it really comes into the picture once the data engineer has provided a data, right? Because then only the data scientist can start using that data. What does a data scientist basically do? They obviously they understand the data, right? They have the business context also, so they understand the data, they explore it, and then obviously they have to build like data scientists / machine learning engineers together. They basically build these ML or AI solutions, right? So they basically need to have an understanding of data, how it can be used for, let's say, machine learning models, AI models, and then build those solutions from scratch. And obviously this is more of an iterative process that I feel. I mean, you don't build a machine learning model in the first go, right? There's a lot you'll do hyperparameter tuning. You will probably you'll have to keep retraining the model, let's say every 2 weeks or even let's say a month, depending on the new data that you might be encountering. So I feel that's more of an iterative process. But as an individual, I feel, okay, if you have an analytical mindset, if you are comfortable with a little bit of like good amount of statistics and mathematics, because machine learning behind the scenes, I mean, I'm not a machine learning pro, but what I understand behind the scenes is there's a lot of mathematics and statistics, right? So if you understand these things, and then you understand how can you use those let's say that knowledge or those concepts, and actually bring out some benefit out of the data, and then and build a solution that helps solve a problem. If you want to do that kind of work, then I feel yes, working as a data scientist in the longer run really helps. And yeah, I mean, yes, in terms of let's say data engineering, we know it has an overlap with software engineering. For data science, I don't think it has a complete overlap with software engineering, but I've also seen people who have had a software engineering background, then they transition into as a data scientist, and then eventually they call themselves as a full stack data scientist, which is also quite in demand, because that makes you an independent data scientist. You don't have to let's say like for example, you might even be capable of creating like data pipelines. You can you are well versed with programming, so you don't really shy away from it. And then at the end of the day, obviously whatever I just mentioned, like working with data, analyzing, building these ML solutions, AI solutions, you're also comfortable there doing that. So I think in that case, a data science role makes little more sense, for you. Now, when it comes to data analytics, I have seen that, okay, there are again a variety of data analysts. Broadly, this is something I categorize. Like broadly, feel there are like three. For example, one is the business analyst, who might be, more like, might be a more business friendly person. As in like, okay, as a business analyst, you might not be writing a lot of code, I guess. You might be using more UI tools, but yes, you might have some understanding how to, work with data, how to crunch data, basically. It could be using Excel, how to create like basic dashboards, reports, how do you do like data storytelling, these kind of things. So I think if you are, and at the same time also, you might be working alongside a lot of business teams. So I feel if you want to act as a bridge between tech and business, I think a business analyst role is good. For a data analyst, I feel, okay, like a typical data analyst, they are a little more technical, I would say. When I say technical, I basically mean they could be, writing a lot of SQL queries. They might be doing a lot of data mining, pulling out a lot of data from data warehouses, databases. They might be creating some dashboards, reports. They might even be doing data analysis with Python, for example. So this is what I see as the second category of data analyst. And third one I see as a business intelligence engineer, or a person or a data analyst who works mainly with data visualization tools like Tableau or Power BI. So they have their expertise there, like Tableau, Power BI, or any of these BI tools. And most of the time they're obviously building like these very complex, large scale enterprise level dashboards and reports, again for different purposes. It could be for the management folks, or it could be, let's say, you have some data coming into your system and you just want to keep monitoring how things happen. So this is what I feel. So as a data analyst also, like for example, now, okay, first let's answer the question, when does a data analyst role, according to me, really fits in? One, of course, you feel you have an analytical mindset. What do I mean by an analytical mindset is, okay, you like statistics. Let's say you like let's say connecting the dots, finding out patterns. If those are the kind of things you like, maybe data analytics role in the longer run is helpful for you. And at the same time, you don't want to get into software engineering per se, but at the same time, you want to be connected in that ecosystem. So in that case, data analytics helps, because again, when you, as a data analyst, let's say if you're learning Python, if you're using Python, people might not expect you to know object-oriented programming, right? But yeah, people might expect you to know how do you analyze data with, let's say, pandas, or maybe a similar Python library, right? So that's something people will expect. People will expect, okay, you know how to write SQL queries, but people will not expect you to know the in and out of a database, right? That's what differentiates you was like from a data engineer to a data analyst. So if you're basically not very comfortable with software engineering and you have an analytical mindset, data analyst roles can be good. And if you also just want to stick to UI based tools, that's also good. I mean, nowadays I think things are also changing. I mean, you have natural language, and you just basically write a sentence and you get a dashboard out of your data, right? AI tools are enabling that. For that also, you need to have that business context. So as a data analyst, because you work with business stakeholders, you prepare reports and dashboards which business consumers at times use, right? So you also have that understanding that, okay, if there's like this technical piece of information, how do I like dilute it? How do I make it easy to understand for my business stakeholders or consumers? So if you can do that, I think as a data analyst, you'll really go very far. But yes, even before you step into the data analyst realm, I would suggest that, okay, obviously learn about these three different categories, which I would say are very broadly classified. There are roles which have a mix of two also. I mean, nowadays openings can be very interesting, I would say. So I mean, yeah, if you have a certain skill sets, and you can pretty much qualify for any of these three different data analyst roles. And again, say the same applies for data science or machine learning, and again, data engineering, like I said. So I think this is the major step. Like, yes, another thing I can add here is, a lot of times people may not know, especially like freshers or people who've not been into the industry, that if you get into this space, like in the data space, for example, you begin as a data analyst, eventually you can even become a data scientist. That's very much possible. So many people are doing. And there are people who become, let's say, data scientists, and they eventually also pick up data engineering skills, and then now they are both a data scientist and a data engineer. So this is also possible. So what I'm trying to say is, like at the very beginning, you just need to decide what is it something that you can focus on, let's say for 1 year or for 2 years. Focus on that, try to get into that role, try to do well at it, and then slowly and steadily, once you keep doing well at something, anyways, more opportunities open up, right? So you can always learn more and more. You can take up a different route as well, because nowadays organizations, be it a startup, be it an enterprise, even consulting firms, to be honest, as a consultant, if you go in, you get to wear multiple hats. So you can obviously, like, change your area of expertise from, like, let's say, data science to data engineering, data analyst to data science, whatever. So that is always a possibility. But in the beginning, try to first focus on one, try to get better at it, and then eventually you decide.
Great. Understood very well. Okay, my last question to you is, what are the ways of networking beside LinkedIn? Because every influencer right now or every YouTuber right now is mentioning about LinkedIn, that you have to build a great set of network on LinkedIn. So could you please elaborate the importance of networking first? And second thing is, what are the ways of it?
Sure. Good question. I also keep reading the same thing around, okay, networking, we need to build a great network. Honestly, till now, when I look back, I don't think I have like a big 1,000 or 10,000 people network. It's pretty small. But yes, I'll tell you my perspective on this. Okay, so my perspective on networking is, firstly, it should be twofold. Okay, it should not be like you coming out as a selfish person, just asking, just asking for referrals, or just trying to get things out from a person. I feel that should not be the idea. The idea is, okay, you try and first build a relationship with someone. That could be your colleagues, that could be, let's say, some external third party person on your project that you're working with. That could be a potential recruiter, for example. That could be any random person you meet on, let's say, LinkedIn or in your real life. So I think the first step is you build a relationship, obviously, try and understand what the person is doing, and have like this cordial relationship, and then of course, you have the rights to obviously talk about your work, what have you done till now. And if you feel that, okay, you're meeting a senior person, try to first also get their guidance. Ask good questions, like, okay, what they are doing, how did they end up there, and the work that they're doing, how is it impacting, what kind of technologies they're using. Try to understand those kind of things. Don't just shoot away the question, hey, I want a referral, please help me, because a lot of times people will be like, this is not how it works. Even for me, honestly, I a lot of people reach out to me on LinkedIn, and and I mean, yeah, I try to help as many people I can with the referrals or anything like that. But I also appreciate the fact that, okay, if somebody actually reaches out to me, first just to just to have like a conversation, and then maybe obviously ask about referrals and these kind of things. So I personally would appreciate that, and this is what I generally suggest people also. So yes, I mean, networking naturally begins from your own team, I would say. You understand the different members in your team, understand their perspective, how they are working, how long they've been working in a certain thing. I think it starts from there. Obviously try to build like good relationship with people working that you're working with. Be adaptive, be obviously be cautious also with like sometimes people just cross the line in some way, so obviously that should also not be done. So first obviously your team, and then it's like, okay, I mean, if you're in a big organization of, let's say, 50,000 60,000 people, I would suggest that, okay, try attend opportunities that help you interact with more and more people. One example could obviously be going to office, let's say, because a lot of organizations today are encouraging people to go to office. So I mean, yeah, if you're a person who likes going to office, or for whom that is possible, you can go to office. You can have conversations with people outside your team as well. I think that's like the next step of networking. Another way I've seen is, this is something that personally benefited me. So again, during my consulting days, so I used to work with like people from Databricks and Microsoft. So for example, if I'm working on a project for an XYZ client, so obviously we'll have a team of consultants, and then there could be a person from Microsoft just coming in and pitching in some ideas or suggestions as a, let's say, as a solutions architect or something of that sort. So in that cases, I used to try and, okay, this is like a very senior person coming from Microsoft. Let me try and build a good rapport. It could just simply say, start with a simple email, or just simple conversation over a text. And obviously you first, like, try and build a relationship, and then obviously some people are actually very friendly. Once you get on calls with them, they might even help you with a lot of other information as well. And like, even today, like, there are like some of these folks like from Microsoft that I'm still connected with, and sometimes have a general chat with. And it's not always about opportunities. Yes, obviously, if they know that you're capable of something, they will always and if they're helpful enough, they will come and help you out, get into an opportunity also. But again, I think the relationship thing matters. Now we've talked about conferences. I think, yeah, so conferences is something that I do suggest people go out there, try, just talk to people, understand from their experience, learn from the experience, and then obviously share your experiences as well. And how I feel this works is, like, obviously you learn something from the others, but at the same time, it could happen that the kind of project you might be in, the kind of use case you might be solving, they might be looking for something similar. So in that case, you can give input to them, and you never know, that could just bring up something new. It could be, I mean, this relationship, maybe after a 2 years period, could help you land a new opportunity. You just don't know, right? Because the kind of impression you make with people face to face, that's something that stays with people rather than obviously online. So that's there. Overall, I think that's all I can say. Obviously, like, meet people, like, either online or in person in your own organization. It could be your friends. It could be your friends working in different companies. It could be through conferences. It could be through LinkedIn. On LinkedIn also, I've also seen that, okay, some people are very outright, like, they'll just, again, message you, and they'll be like, this is so and so, this is what I want, you just help me with this. So I feel that again can be changed, can be modified. It could be made a little more generous. So obviously, you reach out to someone, you talk to them. If they're willing to talk, obviously a lot of people don't have time, that's totally understandable. If somebody is willing to talk to you and just share something, okay, just have a chat with them. And then obviously you can lay out your concerns, or your requirements, and then see if somebody can help you in that way. I have also seen, like, nowadays, because for example, TopMate, right, people are using TopMate, and people are registering for these sessions with the person who's hosting the TopMate session. So a lot of people do register for TopMate, obviously talk to them one-on-one through this call, and then and obviously, like, for example, if a person comes up to me on my TopMate session, I'm always happy to help, as long as it's within the boundary that I can operate in. Obviously, there are there can be restrictions until for the things that I might not have access to or I might not be able to help on. But yeah, for whatever that's within my range, I'll definitely try to help. So I feel this is my perspective or my take on networking. It's definitely helpful. It's super helpful in the tech space to have like genuine connections. But yes, my only advice is don't make it one way, rather make it two ways. And you like try to you like from your side also try to add some value to the other person, and then obviously the other person, if they like it, they'll definitely come and help you back. So that's my take on it.
Great. So I have another question that's pop up in my mind that in
Yeah.
order to make your resume rich, you
Mhm.
have to provide different sort of projects to it, right? So could you please tell us about different set of projects so that not the generic project that everybody is
Mhm.
doing here and there, but the quality projects for the recruiters to impress the recruiters.
Okay, uh, sure. So I think I limit myself again to the data engineering side because that's where I can speak more on. Uh, I mean, the nature of projects nowadays are quite diverse, needless to say. Now, in terms of unique projects, I feel that okay, because I feel there are a lot of projects focusing on batch data engineering, obviously using multiple tools. I think that has become quite common, but in a lot of these resumes, I feel real-time projects is something that's not very often encountered. I mean, by recruiters. So I think this is one sphere where you can focus on. Now, I can obviously speak about a few technologies that I have personally worked on building like real-time data engineering solutions at a production level. So I mean, for example, if you have some data in the data lake, and you can process it like you can process it via something like Spark structure streaming, like kind of build a real-time streaming pipeline with Spark, and again, land it on to somewhere else in the transform state. That could be one. You could be like, let's say, pulling data from certain APIs. You can have like an application pulling data from certain APIs, push it into Kafka, and then from Kafka you can again attach like a streaming job with Spark structure streaming, and you could be writing data onto, let's say, the data lake, and then from the data lake you could create, let's say, certain hive tables, and that could be consumed downstream as well. So again, the objective here is that okay, I would suggest that okay, if you want to like do something different, try to explore projects in the real time space. Again, I mentioned, there are few technologies already there that you can very well use. I mean, you could use Apache Kafka, you can use Spark, of course. You can let's say for data lake you can use something like S3, or you can use something like MinIO for that matter, if you want to just do it locally, set up things locally. I've also seen some really interesting, like very few, but yeah, some interesting projects around real-time dashboarding also, which is becoming quite common these days. Like for example, you might be building those real-time pipelines, pushing the data into, let's say, it could be a database, it could be the data lake, and then on top of that, you have some reports or some dashboards powered by that. So as and when your data changes, your dashboards and reports also reflect the same thing. So I mean, these are again very high level ideas, but if somebody is looking to create projects, a little more interesting projects, try to focus on the real time area, and try to experiment with larger data sizes, because in data engineering, I mean, because if you're working with big data ecosystems, for example, in uh, in my current role, like here we are dealing with terabytes of data, right, and building like obviously real time stuff, handling terabytes of data. So that has certain complexities when you're doing that at a production level. But at your own, like at your personal level, if you're even able to let's say build a real time pipeline that can ingest like GBs of data, and efficiently create some dashboards and reports, that would at least add some value to your profile, because at least when the recruiter, they read about your project, you handle like GBs of data, build like a real-time solution. That's exciting. To be honest, if I was a recruiter, that would have been very exciting for me, rather than somebody just talking about, hey, I had data in the lake as a CSV, I just pulled it out with Spark, I just did some transformation, wrote it out into a data warehouse. I mean, that is also a production level use case. I mean, a lot of places we do that as well. But just to create some richness into your resume, you can try adding something around real time, and honestly that will help you learn a lot as well. So I mean, yeah, that's all I can suggest.
So great. Thank you for become the guidance of different sort of people, different sort of individuals who are seeking the jobs, making their career into the field of data science. Thank you, Sarthak. Nice talking to you. That's all from my side.
Sure.
That's all for today. If you
Yeah.
want to add up
Thank you.
something, then you can.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I'll just end on this note that okay, it's I see it as a marathon. It's not a sprint. So it's going to be a long journey, irrespective of the data role that you have. I mean, the landscape is vast with technologies and with tools and programming languages and I mean whatnot stuff. So yeah, take it step by step. Focus on small bits of learning and try to do well in your projects and everything, and then eventually you'll land up into a good position where you will be able to help others as well. So that's all I'll close up with.
Thank you, Sarthak.
So